Now let's shift gears and talk about a rare cancer of mesothelial cells. As I said, malignant mesothelioma is a rare cancer of mesothelial cells, usually arising in the parietal or visceral pleura. It also occurs much less commonly in the peritoneum and the pericardium. Although it's rare, it has a great importance because it's highly related to exposure to airborne asbestos. About 80 to 90% of mesothelioma cases have a history of exposure to asbestos. The risk of mesothelioma is not limited to those who work directly with asbestos, like shipyard workers, miners, insulators, but also extends to individuals whose only exposure was living in proximity to an asbestos factory or being a relative of an asbestos worker. The latent period for developing malignant mesothelioma after the initial exposure is long. It's about 25 to 40 years. As we mentioned before, the combination of cigarette smoking and asbestos exposure greatly increases the risk for developing lung cancer, but it does not increase the risk for developing malignant mesothelioma. It's worth noting that once inhaled, asbestos fibers remain in the body for life. Thus, the lifetime risk after exposure does not diminish over time, unlike smoking. Macroscopically, malignant mesotheliomas are often preceded by extensive pleural fibrosis and plaque formation, which can be seen on CT scans. The tumor begins in a localized area and over time spread widely, either by contiguous growth or by diffuse seeding of pleural surfaces. The neoplasm may directly invade the thoracic wall or the subpleural lung tissue, but distant metastases are considered uncommon. At autopsy, the affected lung typically is ensheathed by a layer of yellow-white firm variably gelatinous tumor that obliterates the pleural surface. As in this figure, the tumor appears as thick, firm white pleural tumor that ensheaths this bisected lung. Normal mesothelial cells are biphasic, giving rise to pleural lining cells as well as the underlying fibrous tissue. This figure shows the normal histology of benign normal mesothelial cells, with aligning epithelial cells and underlying fibrous tissue. The left figure shows the pleura, where it's lined by a single layer of normal mesothelial cells. These mesothelial cells are almost flat cells, or you may describe them as small cuboidal, with eosinophilic cytoplasm and indistinct nuclear features. The right figure shows the same mesothelial lining, but here the cells are much more cuboidal and much easier to be identified if compared with the flat mesothelial cells in the left figure. But still, in both, it shows the similar plant cytomorphology. Let's return back to mesothelioma. Microscopically, mesothelioma have one of the three morphologic appearances. The first is epithelial, in which the cuboidal cells with the small papillary buds line tubular or microcystic spaces. This pattern is considered the most common and looks like the pulmonary adenocarcinoma. So it's the most common, likely to be confused with pulmonary adenocarcinoma. The second pattern is sarcomatous, in which spindle cells grow in sheets. And the third pattern is biphasic, having both sarcomatous and epithelial areas. This figure shows the histology of malignant mesothelioma. The arrow points to plump rounded cells forming gland-like configuration.